morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you have the opportunity to join me. I'm Dr. Jan. This is Russell Institute of Learning, Sidebar Education, and the teacher I have with me today is Margaret Howell MEd. That's Master of Education for any who might not know. And if you watched our last episode that was recorded, Margaret is the senior child within that segment of the Ware family, and her brother is Alan C. So, Margaret, welcome to Russell Institute of Learning today.
Thank you, Dr. Jan. I feel honored to, be included in this. This is really awesome. Thank you.
Well, I'm just excited how God put us together as a family. And if other people who this might be their first time, realizing that Russell Institute of Learning was birthed long before 2013, because I believe God had orchestrated our family together. And just check out our name, that Russell Institute of Learning, powered by the Ware concept, working at renewing education. So he had it all in plan before we were even born. So I am very thankful for such a time as this. He's brought us together. And I think this summer series of interviewing teachers and beginning with family members who are just desirous to work together, it just starts us out in all of the right places. So, Miss Margaret, let's get started. Tell me about your educational experience, particularly K through 12, your college, and tell me some about your experience as a teacher.
Okay. Well, as is the case with many of us Wares, I was a late bloomer. I kind of came into education in a roundabout way. I came in through the back door, I sometimes say, but I would never consider myself to be a strong academic student. I was a well-behaved student. I wanted to learn. I wanted to be successful. I just wasn't motivated to be that top student to really. So I basically did what I had to do to be successful enough to learn and to move on to the next level. And I just wasn't motivated to do much more than that. But that all changed when I returned to college as an adult student, because something happens when you have to pay for it yourself. And even in college, my first time around, I did well in my classes. I could have done better, but I did well enough. But when I went back as an adult student, something clicked in me and I was ready. But that happened after I had gotten married at the age of 19, had my first child at 23. And once she got older and I started getting, and I had people in my life that kept saying, when are you going back to school? When are you going back? It was friends, family, different ones. And so finally, my husband and I talked and prayed about it, and I ended up going back to school part-time. And unfortunately, I couldn't go full-time because of our finances. At the time, John had his own business and I was the person responsible for benefits and all that. So I couldn't go back to school full-time. I had to work. But 30 years later, because from the date I looked at I was like, oh my goodness, I left after my freshman year of college. I did not complete my education, my bachelor's degree, until 30 years later. If that's not tenacious, I don't know what is. And so I think that has given me a really cool perspective on the whole education process. I have been an advocate for my children. I've been a partner with my children's teachers. I've worked hand in hand. I've watched family members. I ran away from elementary education. I'm gonna just tell you that. My mom kept saying, oh, you should be a teacher. You should be a teacher. I'm like, oh, I like my kids, but I don't know if I like other people's kids that much. And so God has a sense of humor. And I was brought back around and fell in love with elementary education, which is why I ended up getting my master's degree in education. So my bachelor's degree is a Bachelor of Arts in photography and graphic design, because my husband and I had a photography and graphic design business. And so that's what my degree was in. And I was, doing things with that. Still am a photographer, still an artist, still doing those things, but got a job at my youngest daughter's school to help defray some of the costs. It was a private school. And so they took off some of my salary to pay her tuition. So it was a real blessing. Then opportunities opened up. I did that after I got my bachelor's degree. It was just a real entry-level thing. Opportunity opened up for me to start teaching technology, K-5 technology. And so in the beginning, I was getting everything free off the internet that I could possibly find. We did not have any type of structured curriculum, anything like that. And so I was pulling from my resources, my personal resources of having been using typing and technology for my 20 years at JP Morgan Chase. And then I started pulling things from the internet and things that I could find that were free. And then went to a tech conference where I discovered a really, really awesome curriculum that could be used for all of our grade levels. And so that's what we started using. And so I felt like, okay, now I feel like a real teacher because I have a curriculum that's following state guidelines and national guidelines of what they should be learning in this area. Then I got to a point where, okay, this is not enough. I got that education bug. We're all, okay, there's just something about being aware. We are students for life.
Yes.
Fortunately, we are people who have chosen academic areas where we can get jobs, thank goodness. We're not professional students, but we are students for life. I am a lifelong learner. And so I decided to go back and get my master's degree in education because I really wanted to see where I could go with this whole elementary education piece because I fell in love with my students. And right place, right time, right situation. I became the art teacher, K-5 art teacher for 2 of our campuses. And that's what I've been doing for the past 7-8 years. I've been with this job teaching for about 10 years. And 8 of those I've been teaching both art and technology, which is what I do now. So as I said, it's kind of a roundabout way. As a specials teacher, which is what they refer to those of us who teach things that are not just purely the regular academics. I kind of have the best of both worlds. I get to know my students, but I get to do some of the fun stuff with them, art, computers, things that a lot of kids are already drawn to. Now, I do have my students that struggle with either one of those. I have some kids that are but I get to see both sides, which is really cool. I get to see my techie kids who struggle with the artistic side, and I get to encourage them to try to use that side of their brain. And then I see my artsy kids who are just like, the sky is so pretty in the world that they live in. And I wish I could see it. I wish I could see it with them, but it's so pretty because that's where they live. But I get to help them make logical, rational thinking. And that stuff comes in handy with helping them with their academics, their math, their science, those sorts of things. So I'm really fortunate because when I tell people I teach art and computers, they're like, so you use both sides of your brain. I said, yes, and my brain is tired, but it's fulfilled. So one side of my brain does not get a rest. Either side does not get a rest. It's always working.
I think that's good exercise. Well, let me ask you question number 2, because I like that coming back, and this will not be your only trip to our episode, but talking about left brain, right brain, because that had been a lot of my training even before going to get my doctorate. And that as we can engage both sides of the brain, we are really, truly engaging the child. And some are better one or the other, but our goal is to strengthen it.
Right.
So the actual second question, because I also have my timer going too.
Sure.
What is your opinion about the learning environment of the world today as compared to what you experienced growing up? And I think you might have been telling a little bit about this in your classes.
Yeah, it's really funny. When I was in elementary school, when we were in school, parents just took whatever teachers and administrators said as gospel. Okay. They were the authority on education. Parents did not, unless there was something really, really not right going on. Parents trusted their teachers and the principals and the administrators to do what their students needed for them to be successful. One of the things that I've noticed is that too many parents today want to fight their kids' battles. They don't want them to struggle. There's so much benefit to struggling. Struggle is where you learn who you are. Struggling is where you learn what you know, what you don't know. And struggling is where you realize just how smart or how strong you are. So when we have parents who say, well, he doesn't like art because he just doesn't do well in it, or he just doesn't like, we're not comfortable with him learning technology because we don't want him to get addicted to video games. I said, okay, that's fine. With technology, if your son or daughter does not learn how to become comfortable with technology at this young of an age, they're not going to have a future in this world. Example, when my husband went back into the corporate world, he had to complete the whole application online. There was no paper. He had to do it all on computer. So if you're a person who is concerned about your child being on a computer all day or all of these things, there are benefits to these things. So my role has been, and I think that's why I became a teacher after I became a grandma. I have kind of become like a kind of a parent to some of our parents. We have a lot of millennial parents, and bless their hearts, they want so much for their children. They want their children to succeed. They want them to have every opportunity known to man. And that's great, but that's not realistic. They're going to struggle. There's going to be times when things are boring. There's going to be times when they just don't get it. And it's okay. And because I had a parent who called me and said, he's not doing bad academically, but I just feel like, is there something more I could be doing? Is there something more? I said, sweetheart, he's doing great. I said, if I could have 2 or 3 more of your sons, I would have the best class. I said, he's so attentive. He's polite. He's kind to his classmates. And so my job is to kind of take parents off that ledge and help them realize your son or daughter has to go through some things so that they can grow. When we were growing up, there were things that happened at school that mom and dad may never have known about until we got older and told them about it.
Thank goodness my one pal
Girl,
grade 4, because I would have gotten it.
Listen, but the benefit of that is we learned how to work through situations. We learned how to talk to our teachers politely, but to say what we needed to say. We learned how to talk to our classmates, work through things. Nowadays, parents get so involved in every aspect. And one of the things that I've been encouraging my oldest daughter, who has 2 children, she has a 8-year-old who's going into second and a 2-year-old. One thing I've encouraged her, I said, Megan, let her work it out. Let her figure it out. Let her fail. Let her make mistakes. And when I say fail, I'm not talking about let her fail the grade. No. We want her to be successful, but she has some cognitive and some speech disabilities, and she stutters, and she has trouble with sequential things at times. Let her work it out. Let her figure out what she has to do to communicate. Let her figure out, be there to support her. But she has to learn interpersonal, because she's probably going to stutter the rest of her life in some way. She's probably going to have little gaps for the rest of her life in some way. She has got to learn how to cope without you with holding her like this.
And we pray that teachers, if our classrooms aren't so disjointed, have the opportunity, because you make a comment about several of my students who, I teach grade right now 5 and 6. We're really starting to identify that they may be dyslexic, or they may have some kinds of disability that,
Yes.
hey, that's not a problem. Let's
No.
we identify it, because now
Right.
we can know that there are some tips and plans that we can overcome it.
Exactly.
Because students who might have these, what we would call disabilities, they're
Right.
just different
Yes.
abilities, that they
Yeah.
go to college, they can be successful. And
Absolutely.
so this labeling has always been
Absolutely.
one of my yes, but if you don't get labeled, you don't get funding. And again, some of the system working at
Right.
renewing education,
Right.
our goal is
Right.
to set students up for success. Well, let me
Right.
move you to the third question, because I think this is where we are. What is your observation of the students that you were teaching in your classes, and what is the truest need? What is it they really need?
I've I've noticed a sense of entitlement, even in my own grandchild. Many of the children, they expect things to happen for them immediately. They expect people to answer them immediately. They expect people to respond to them immediately. Our granddaughter is so guilty of that. So I understand, I'm not throwing my students under the bus. My granddaughter is right there under the bus with them. Okay. She is just as guilty as anyone else. And one of the things that parents are not doing is holding their children accountable for their behavior in many ways. And so what I have to do, and what a lot of my colleagues have to do, is we have to teach them those things. When two adults are talking, or when I'm talking to another student, you will wait your turn, because that's how you behave in polite society. If you see me talking to someone else, saying excuse me over and over and over, while that is polite, is not appropriate. So I'm not going to acknowledge you, because I am already engaged. And so having those conversations with the kids, helping them to understand that you may not get the answer right away. I may make you think for yourself. Oh, what? Think for myself? You're not going to tell me the answer? No. I may not tell you every step we're taking.
Grade,
I'm
because
sorry.
I hate to say that what I see is,
Mhm.
since I'm usually at grade 3, 4, somewhere, but lately mostly 4 and up, that by the time they've come, all of their answers, and it's sort of set up this way, are, hey, here's the answer, here's the answer. It's always black and white. But by the time you're getting to
Right.
4th grade, now they are brain
Right.
questions is what I give them. You have enough information, but you can make an observation, an inference,
Yes.
but they're afraid to make a wrong answer. And I say, well, if you don't make any answer at all, I can't help you. You have to make
Right.
some kind of answer,
Right.
because
Right.
then, without telling you the answer, I might be able to give you some clues where to go
Yes.
and look. But you can't say, I don't know. I don't get it.
Well,
That's absolutely unacceptable.
and that's exactly, that's how I, even starting with kindergarten, when we have discussions about different artists or different, I have really been heavily into celebrating the cultures that are within our school. We have African, Asian, we have, I mean, you name it, we've got it. South America, we're like a United Nations for such a small school. So we look at artists from those different communities and we celebrate them. And so I challenge kids to think outside of their own little worlds. So one of the challenges I gave our 4th and 5th graders is, I want you to think about one of these artists that we learned about during Black History Month. And I want you to tell me how you relate to them, or why does their art speak to you? I want you to write me a 1-page essay on that. When I tell you the thoughtfulness and the depth that those students went to, I'm getting chills. It blew me away. One girl, I was almost in tears when I read what she wrote. It was so thoughtful and just so well. You could see her really digging into herself and saying, how do I relate? I'm a little white girl from the suburbs. How do I relate to Amina Robinson, who was an African-American woman who grew up in the projects in Columbus, Ohio. Why do I relate to her, or why does her work speak to me? It was powerful, powerful. So I think one of the things that I really feel they need to do is to learn how to think. They need to learn how to think, and they need to learn how to trust themselves and be okay with being wrong. So much anymore, kids feel scared to be wrong. And I try to model that. If I make a mistake, if I say something and I was like, you guys, did you hear what I just said? And they're like, yeah, I said, that was not right. And I said, can you forgive me for being wrong? They're like, yeah. And so when they make a mistake, I said, hey, no problem. I said, remember when Mrs. Howell made that mistake and I said something crazy? And they were like, oh, yeah. Putting them in an environment where they feel safe to make mistakes. They feel safe to be wrong. Because it's only when you share, as you said, if you don't share anything, I can't help you. I don't know if you get it or you don't get it. So one of the things that my students absolutely hate that I do, when I throw a question out there, I just sit there and I stare at them and I wait for their response. Mm-hmm. And they're just looking at me and I'm looking at them. And I said, guess what? I'm okay with silence until you give me what I'm asking you for. So I want you to think, I said, we're not moving on until someone gives me something. And you always have that one brave soul that will step in, who the silence really bothers them so much they have to say something. And then that opens up that door. But I'm like, I don't spoon feed you. I want you to be able to think for yourself. And one of the funniest things that I have experienced is some of my students that I feel like I'm on them all the time. Sweetheart, sit down. No, honey, no, we don't do that. Okay, come over here and have a seat. Parent-teacher conferences, they love your class.
Oh, I know.
I'm like, who? Your child? And they're like, oh my gosh, they just love technology and art. I'm like, really? Oh, well, that's awesome.
Let me tell you something, as we're going to have to wrap up, because I know that I have all these younger kids. Oh, we can't wait to have you. We just love you. And I always say to them, you say that now.
Just wait.
You have me. And it does. I think when we challenge the students, we show them we believe in them. We try to give them a path to success. That's why they love us. Not because I'm trying to be the easiest teacher. I'm probably a tough teacher because I expect great things out of every student, but I'm not going to throw you out there by yourself. So let me just sort of recap, because, the final non-prep question I was going to ask you, what is your greatest concern? Well, some of it is, I think that parents are stepping in a little soon to uplift their children, and that our children are not having enough feeling of trust in themselves to also step out and take the risk. And it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay, because you know what? A mistake is just telling, well, that's not the way. And for me, because I am an upper primary teacher, almost everything I teach, whether it's science, math, especially, there's always a process, and even spelling. There is a tip and a process. If you can memorize the tip and the process, every time you divide a problem, it's the same. I don't care if you got 10 dividends and 3 divisors, it's the process, whether you got 2 to 1. So once you learn how to do it, you can do exceptionally abundantly above all you could ask or think. Well, Miss Margaret, I am so glad you're with me, but can you believe we're already at the time limit? And
that's crazy.
It goes so fast, but I will be having you back. Is there any last comment you would like to make?
I'm excited because when we go back, we were in school through the entire pandemic. We never closed our school. We had to teach in masks. That was interesting because my face is my expression is how I relate to my students. So I am excited because it is our plan that we will not have to wear masks in our school in the fall. That's our plan as of right now. So I'm excited because the students will get to see when I'm smiling at them or when I'm looking concerned or whatever. And I think there'll be fewer misunderstandings because I think students thought that I was upset. And so there were times when I would pull the mask down, like, I let us like smiling. I'm 6 feet away, but I'm smiling, so I'm excited to be able to express myself to them as I'm used to. And just, getting to have school as normal as it can be. Our plan is that we had hybrid, and our plan is that we should not be having any, unless there is a family situation where they cannot be exposed, that most of our students, if not all, will be in classroom, which will be huge.
Yes.
That was a nightmare.
So
That was a nightmare, but I'm excited about this coming year, being able to teach as I'm used to teaching, being able to see kids' faces, getting to know them, and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think parents have a better, I read, just one last thing. I read an article in Forbes about the paradigm shift of parenting and education, parents and education. And it was really interesting because it said how parents, that Pandora box has been opened now. Parents know what type of student their child is. They know how they relate if they watched them during Zoom calls, not participate or participate really well or whatever. They know what it takes to help their child understand, so they have a better understanding of what teachers go through. And it's not just your child, an entire classroom of your child. But that parents may be more active in their child's education, which personally I welcome.
Yes.
I need a partner.
Yes.
I need you to support me, because when I send something home for your child to do, and you know what it took for me to get that together for your child, you know what you had to go through to help them do it, you're going to encourage that child to do it.
Yes.
So
I do. Yeah. I tend to be a teacher who asks my children to come to the parent teacher conference. Mainly because I don't want the children to think we're talking behind their back, because whatever I have to say to their parent, I can say in front of you. And most of the time it's all good. But if there's concern, and the parents, oh yeah, I noticed that too. And the child goes, now you can't play teacher and parent against each other.
And I've had that.
I believe that getting more parental involvement and students, I think it takes all of us to be invested into the education process.
I agree.
Okay, Miss Margaret. This is not our last time. I want to say to our Russell Institute of Learning Sidebar Education viewers, please like, comment, follow, share. Please leave comments. We are wanting this to be a community that is working at renewing education for our students, because our students are our future.